Today is World Autism Awareness Day, not Acceptance Day, Awareness Day. And I want to sit with that distinction for a moment before I say anything else. Awareness says, look at this, it exists, it is present in the world. Acceptance says, make room for this, design around how it actually works rather than how you wish it worked. Those are two completely different invitations. And the gap between them is where most people, not just in the context of autism, but in the context of any system that operates differently than the dominant framework expects, spend enormous amounts of energy that never gets accounted for. I'm Liz St. James. At H2P Collective, we work with people and teams to use their problems as a doorway to their goals. We have a 5-step framework called Synovio Space that takes a systems thinking, multi-dimensional approach to attaining goals. How much of your energy right now is going toward performing a version of yourself that fits someone else's expectations, rather than building from how you actually work? I spent years in hospitality leadership, learning to operate in rooms that weren't designed for someone who looked like me, sounded like me, or came from where I came from. 5-foot Latina, East New York, Brooklyn, in rooms that had already decided what leadership looked like before I walked in. And for a long time, I thought the work was to become more like the room, to adapt my natural style, to match the environment, to smooth the edges that made people uncomfortable, to perform the version of competence the framework expected rather than demonstrate the version I actually had. What I eventually understood is that I was spending a significant portion of my available energy on the performance. Energy that wasn't going toward the actual work. Energy that wasn't going toward the people I was leading. Energy that was just gone. Burned in the maintenance of an appearance that the room required and that I was never going to be able to sustain indefinitely. Here's the question the Synovio Space framework asks about this. And it's a different question than most frameworks ask. Is the thing you're working around a genuine limitation? Something with current evidence that actually requires adaptation? Or is it a perceived impossibility that only feels fixed because someone else decided it was fixed and you believe them? Real acceptance, not awareness, acceptance is accurate assessment. It's understanding how your system actually functions as the prerequisite for finding movement that works for you specifically, not the movement that works for the framework the room was designed around. The movement that works for who you actually are. The difference between those two things is not small. It determines almost everything about the quality and sustainability of what you build. This week, identify one place in your life where you're spending energy performing something rather than actually being it. Not for judgment, for data. Because energy spent on performance is energy unavailable for movement. And you can't build a buffer in a system that's running on empty. The free Synovio Space Diagnostic at h2pcollective.com gives you an honest snapshot of where you are across all 8 dimensions of your life. But a snapshot on its own is just data. What turns into a roadmap is the conversation, your goals, your results, and the insight Raphael and I bring to both. That's where we find the one change that creates movement everywhere else. Take your goal, start with the diagnostic. That's the first step. Today is World Autism Awareness Day. The awareness is the beginning. The acceptance, making room for how things actually work rather than how the framework expects them to work, that's where the movement actually starts.